give more returns. Get more security and more interest on your fixed deposits from Sri Lanka's largest finance company, LOLC Finance.
It's your responsibility. Clean up. Be mindful of others who share the same spaces. Refresh Sri Lanka for a civic-minded society. In association with AICPA and CIMA, CA, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, and 99X. LMD, the voice of business.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging Media.
Get the Light 87 app right now and never miss a moment.
Better keep listening.
Head over to the Apple App Store or Google Play now.
87.8 and 87.6 island-wide. Light 87.
Hello and welcome to the forum on LMDtv. I'm Ruwandi Perera, and on the show tonight, we have Group Financial Controller and Senior Vice President of Keells Holdings, Mohan Thanthirige, talking to us on Budget 2023, the investment outlook, cash flow management, and of course, the new tax regime. Welcome to the show, Mohan.
Thank you so much for having me here at this show. Thanks again.
Starting things off, in your view, has Budget 2023 sufficiently addressed and facilitated the formulation of a framework to demonstrate Sri Lanka's alignment to the IMF's proposals?
Good question. First of all, the IMF, for the moment, we are having the staff level agreement. That's the thing at the moment on the table, which is, of course, something called extended fund facility, about 2.9 billion USD. I think this is interesting that this is the 17th IMF program since our independence. In the last few decades, we have been pursuing IMF facilities 17th time. That's interesting. Then the reason is this whole thing will depend on what is our progress with external creditors, whether they are in line with our understanding, whether they are happy to our debt restructuring. Then everybody knows that China going through a bit of a domestic political transformation, then reaching them out, getting them aligned before Christmas, a bit of a far-fetched call. We'll hope for the best, at least by March. There's a meeting happening with the IMF in March, the board. At least we'll hope for the best if we align all these things by January, February. Then by March, we'll be ready with IMF discussions. I think that is the outset of the IMF program. Regarding 2023 budget, in particular, they're trying to, in total, I mean, not only the budget, then all related things that they propose to changes of the IRD Act and overall coming in a broader perspective. They're trying to achieve two things. Increase the government revenue, I think, which is the important thing even for the IMF program. That's what they try to look at it. Then through this tax increases, they are looking for a little deceleration or slow down the economic activity, because the inflation at the moment, which is unbearable, which is not sustainable. I think in overall, from through this budget, they achieve a revenue increases to government, like slowing down the economic activities where they can have some sort of a sustainable level of inflation. Interestingly, central bank governor recently said that how we have reached the peak in inflation. In other words, more likely there'll be a downturn in inflation time comes. If I go to specificities, in 2019, government, there's a budget presented in budget 2020, which is a removal of taxes. Suddenly they take off collections in different points and so on and so forth. Now, this regime or this government put those things back on track to enhance the revenue. I think that's the my overall comment on how the IMF alignment plus this budget and related activities in terms of taxes.
And looking at it from an investor's point of view, especially from an FDI perspective, what aspects of the budget do you think gives the most amount of comfort?
In terms of the budget, of course, it's laid the foundation for Sri Lankan economy. I think there are few things that they discuss, in particularly the budget. They talk about open economic system, which of course social protection. Then they try to envisage something called export-oriented competitive economy. It's something is underlying fundamental in this budget. Then environmental friendly economy, and of course the digital economy we try to enhance. Then I pick it up from the starting from very easy or rather easy hanging fruit, the digital economy. They try to enhance new policies, laws, like institutional support, facilities to enhance this digital technology. Then in other words, try to enhancement of the digital economy, which is of course the best thing in terms of getting the tractions and the shareholders. Then there were some other discussions on new economic zones positioning in the country for, especially for the international trade. They're talking about northern, western, northern, Hambantota area, Trincomalee area. I think these are the zones that they marks for have these separate doors, alternative mechanism, of course, to enhance this international trade with new economic zones. Then there's another discussion happening on improvement of logistic infrastructure, which is very important. I think we have a very strict laws in terms of foreign shareholders and so on and so forth. I'm sure they will look at it this thing positively. Upon everything, they are looking for amalgamation. I'm not sure what is the exact structure for this thing. Now currently we have Board of Investment, Export Development Board, then we have Sri Lanka Export Credit Insurance Corporation, we have National Enterprise Development. Likewise, there are so many entities looking for this foreign. Now they try to bring everything under one agency or maybe the new agency. I think we yet to decide, yet to see how these things are coming up. It will be like a one-stop shop for the institutional foreign investors to, or maybe any foreign investors to come and set up things in Sri Lanka. Then at the same time, they are looking for new labor laws or maybe looking at structuring. Then interestingly, I think everybody knows that our agriculture, we have a small the farmers' land, which is very hard to consider, but we know that Sri Lankan government as a owner of land bank in terms of especially the agriculture, they try to release, I think on the lease terms, they try to lease these lands for cultivation, so agricultural activities. Last but not least, they are discussing about hydrogen technology for development, I think green hydrogen initiatives, maybe Puttalam, Mana, that coastal region they are looking for. I think these are the very high level things that I have seen in the budget currently, positively looking at activities, especially in terms of attracting foreign shareholders and investors.
And in addition to what has already been announced, what would you have considered to be included in the budget to encourage greater investment in Sri Lanka?
These cases, I think we need to understand, especially when it comes to FDI, what are the things that they look for in their hierarchy? What is a key thing they like to have it? Based on our discussions and understanding with shareholder, more likely they look for something called the policy consistency. That's important. You have to have, they will ask about skilled laborers in this country, then continuous supply of power and energy, tax holidays, and so forth. But the topmost important thing is the consistency, especially the policy consistency. I think that factor, I think better to put in kind of a play with this budget, then that shows our resilience and our continuity for rather positive environment that we are creating for the foreign shareholders to come here and actually set up their facilities and give the employment, and they will be part of our GDP. I think that's the place that I'm coming from. Very short answer is policy consistency, that piece, I would think it's best that it will be part of as an inclusion in this budget.
And looking at things from a cash flow management perspective, and of course, considering the macro economy as well, what advice would you give to fiscal policy formulators?
Purely cash flow management perspective, I'll use a very simple the analogy here. Say in a company, you have a customer which is paying 100 rupees every month, no liquidity issue, pretty much consistency with the payment. Suddenly you ask that person to, okay, look here, don't pay me 100 every month. You pay 300 rupees once in a quarter. Then instead of 100 rupee every month, we wouldn't do that such a thing in a business. Why? In principle, we know that rupee you get today is worth more than rupee you get tomorrow. I mean, that's a simple finance theory. I don't think I need to explain time value of money in a country where we are reaching 70% price inflation plus 70% plus price inflation and interest rate exceeding 30%. Seems like our policy formulator missed that point where you can actually collect taxes from at the source, or maybe if you have developed a process which actually getting the money more frequent manner than going to a different mechanism. I think that particular piece, I felt that our policy formulator missed. I'm sure with this new budget, they try to put those things back on track. We'll see how these things are laid out and getting to the administrative procedures and so on and so forth, how these things are really implemented with this new budget.
And if we look at Sri Lankans' personal cash flow management, what advice would you give our viewers to better manage their personal budgets, their personal cash flows, especially in the light of everything like the economic crisis and the rupee depreciation? Considering all your expertise, what would you advise our viewers?
Yeah, sure. I think the current issue is liquidity. I think that's a liquidity issue is the prevailing issue for almost everyone. It's not a question of the bank. It's not a question of the company. It's not a question of even for the individual. Then preserving cash is important. Then I think the things that I'm going to tell very easy for me to say, but a little harder to implement. I'll start from simple ones like you need to start saving. I mean, it's not a question of the amount you're saving. It's a question of the habit. You have to have a habit of saving a little bit of money. I mean, without spending almost everything. You have to get into that habit. Then when you are getting to that habit, then you will look at the new instruments. I mean, higher rates. Then sometimes you actually end up with when the rates are so low, you start borrowing, then you keep those borrowing for like a short-term rollover for a while. Then when the interest rate curves are picked up, you actually put this thing to a very long-term 5-year like an investment. I think the question is you need to get into that habit. I think that's important. That's the first like a point that I like to bring it up. Then better to have the tab of all the expenses, because there'll be sometime we'll find that, okay, look here, we can't find where our money went. We can't technically track it. Better to have this some tab on your expenses. You don't want to have go to the nth degree of having accounts and so on and so forth, but at least have a tab. I mean, where are your expenses? I mean, how are you expending? Then when you're comparing the last month with this month, you know that you have spent so much on these few things that you could have cut it off. I mean, likewise, to get that information in your hand, better to have that tabbed on your expenses. Then other thing is this thing came to the light with this pandemic, that live below your means. I don't think I need to explain these things, and everybody experiencing now for sure with this price escalations and things are happening. That's something that you have to be mindful. Live below your means. Then other point I would like to touch upon is unless of course you are born with a silver spoon, better to possess something called the asset product, which it could be a credit card, it could be a housing loan. I think you may see that I'm contradicting the previous slide told you that for you to live below your means, suddenly I'm asking you to actually possess a credit card. The thing is, sometimes you may need to own some asset which you can't, as I said, if you have enormous amount of money, that may not be a problem, but most of us, I don't think we have that capacity, then have a credit card. I mean, the housing loan is pretty much coming to the play where you'll when the interest is low, you put a kind of a you take a loan. Then when you build a house, or maybe you can buy a house, then with the inflations and price increases, you can see the assets prices increasing. Then it's not an issue of actually paying that loan and owning it. If you want to monetize it, you will end up with a big amount of profit. Take it this thing positively. Even using a credit card may induce for you to spend so many this thing, but that's increase your credit score. I mean, likewise, you need to look at it, take it in the correct spirit. Then last, or maybe maybe the younger generation, I think best that you start your insurance as soon as possible. If you wait till maybe like 30 plus or maybe 40 plus, then the prices are escalating at a rate because they look at the risks. We never know. I think the current context, but to diversify your risks, or maybe like even though things are happening better at the moment, we don't know what's going to be tomorrow. Better you start maybe life insurance, or maybe like house insurance, I mean, based on your capacity. Think about that product as well. Start very early, especially the life insurance. Start very, very early. The premium are very low if you start early. Then you will see that amount, how the retirement, or rather when you want to monetize that insurance, the values are increasing. I think those are few things I can pick it up from my head. Maybe better for the viewers to look at it at the moment.
That's very smart advice. And I think you touched on a lot of things that most of us can directly relate to. Mohan, moving on to talking about the new tax regime, could you share some of your insights, especially regarding aspects that businesses would find valuable?
Yeah, sure. I went through the budget because it's important. It's actually should tell us what is the way that we drive the economy. If you look at the things that they have put out on a paper, they discussing about commercial hub enterprises, we try to give tax incentives, especially the bunkering services. There are some criteria for eligibility. They try to put this particular service or other that product under strategic as a part of that strategic development project. I think recently, or maybe they try to look at it exempting or rather taking off the social security contribution levy as a part of this particular initiative. I think these are positive that they're looking at it. Then they're giving income tax exemptions for the non-residents, especially they're engaged with government project, or maybe as a part of the government grant, which is a very positive. Then they can take foreign expertise for these projects. Then they will divert these projects timelines and things to the better way. I mean, of course, we have a best skill in Sri Lanka, but better looking at these things as well as a part of discussion that tax exemptions, and especially for the non-residents who are engaged with this government project. Then that discussing about phasing out CES and PAL. I think we know that there is a bit people who are in this import business, they know that how complex this system is. They try to phasing this out, and that discussing about timeline, like 3 year, 5 year, that kind of a timeline to phase this thing out. Then there will be a more structured or other less complex system will be on play, especially for the import business. Then they try to licensing bookmark like online gaming, casinos, and so on and so forth. Then maybe international what call facilitators or Sri Lanka. I mean, they try to sort of deregularize that particular piece. I recently heard the cabinet looking at for like a monitoring body for this kind of thing, which is good. Then all the activities can run it through that. I think these are the things I would say they are looking at, especially the insight in this new tax regime. Where business would see value. I mean, then they can actually put their businesses, divert their business. These are big projects, of course. Then you need to take it to the correct way. Then those are the things that I can pick.
And talking about an implementation perspective, what would your inputs have been to encourage more people to voluntarily engage with the new tax system?
It's a bit tricky questions. Voluntarily engage in the system. Okay, I'll again using a few examples. We know that there's a huge migration is happening. If you look at the people are migrating, they are migrating to the developed countries. The thing is, if you look at the developed countries, they may be paying like, I think, companies or other countries like Finland, Japan, Denmark. I'm sure their tax rate is over 50, 60, that range. Then their tax compliances are absolute. I think there's no way that you can get away from the tax compliances or other tax registrations. People are moving to this country. I think the Sri Lankans, they are moving to this country. It's not a question of paying higher taxes or being compliant with the taxes. It's a question of the amount of money or other amount of tax money that you're giving to the government. Then are they accountable for that? What is the transparency that we can get it out of this, the money? I mean, is it visible for us where these monies are went in? I mean, I'm sure if IRD plus the government actually work together and bring this thing to play, okay, look here, this is the money that we spend, these are the projects that transparency, if we can bring the transparency as a law-abiding citizens, I'm sure people don't mind to register because they know that their money put into the to develop this country and great good. I think these are the things that we have to be mindful, especially through this budget that are discussing about tax. I mean, strengthening the tax administration through technology, regulations, process improvement, then especially investing in human capital at IRD, then human capital in Sri Lankan Customs, Department of Exercise, so and so forth, which is good. Then this question is whether it's mandatory or forceful registration that we can ask for. I think your point is for us to go for a voluntary. I think the transparency, I would think that's a key principle. At the moment that you bring that transparency, then people know that, okay, look here, my money is into a place that we can put it to the place where things are deployed in a correct manner. I think people won't mind to get into that voluntary registration and give their money or maybe start paying correct amount of money, their share of tax money to the government. I think that's my thinking of this voluntary registration especially.
You spoke of accountability. You might be aware of LMD's recent campaign, Refresh Sri Lanka, where we are raising awareness to encourage a mindset change for a more civic society. What would your advice be, especially to financial services practitioners with regards to accountability and responsibility?
Yeah, those are very nice words, like accountability, responsibility. I like to bring that transparency as well and referring to that my previous answer. Again, example, for a company, when there's a shareholders investing, they look for these things. They want that the management is accountable, management is responsible, and give a proper transparency in terms of the disclosure and so on and so forth. I think these are principles that we build when it comes to the company, how the company is running, and things like why not for the society. I think we as a shareholder, I'm using that term shareholder, we are giving money to these governments. I mean, we are giving our tax hardly earned money as a part of the tax payments. Then why we are not asking about the accountability from the people who are actually handling this money? The accountability, are they responsible for that money that they are getting from the civil society, all the people in this country? And where's the transparency? I think those are the things you have to be mindful, or maybe like we need to ask from, or maybe through your campaign we need to make sure that the people are asking these questions in public fora, or maybe when they are giving their opinions, even they are voting, whatever means, whether these things are, whether these qualities are reflected in that system, the accountability, responsibility, and transparency. I think those are the virtues that we have to have, those qualities or other positives that we have to have when it comes to civil society and the civic-minded society to get to see where their money went in. I think that's my answer, I mean, how the people want to look at it, these things in positive manner.
Thank you, Mohan. We're almost at the end of our conversation. Any closing remarks you would like to share with our audience?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you reflect last 2 years or maybe the current year we are in, I think the things that have been coming to head is like a turbulent, unpredictability, volatile. I think those are the words that I could use for describe the current situation. Next year is going to be harder, but I sincerely hope that the hard time is behind us. I sincerely hope that. I think I'm sure that most of the business communities or other people coming from the business are connected with this call. My piece of message is, or rather my urge, or rather my request is, when you want to proposing any change, better to work with unison. I mean, there are business communities here, there are associations, there are chambers. I think some of the associations doing very good work. My message that I like to leave is with the audience: better to sit with your competitor, better to sit with your people in your value chain and work together. Bring that opposing opinions or other proposing opinion, whatever you call, with that greater collectivity. Then that voice, or rather that particular message, then you can take it to the great heights. I think that's something I would like to keep with the audience. To work with collaborations, work with your partners, work with your competitors, and bring it up all these things as a single voice. That's the message I like to keep with the audience.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mohan. That was a very insightful conversation, and thank you for giving us so many smart points of advice, which we can put into practice, both businesses and individuals. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me here.
And to our audience, until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.